Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled How AI-Based Breeding Could Be the Key to Next-Gen Plant-Based Innovations. My name is Ryan Muse, and I'll be your X Talks host for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and this presentation includes a Q&A session with our speakers. Now, the webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit your questions and comments for our speakers throughout the presentation using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. This chat box is located in the control panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you require any assistance along the way, please contact me at any time by sending a message using this same chat panel. At this time, know that all participants are in listen-only mode, and please note that the event will be recorded and made available for streaming on xtalks.com. At this point, I'd like to thank Equinom, who developed the content for this presentation. Equinom is a plant-based nutrition company that develops new non-GMO varieties of novel grains to create premium quality ingredients for innovative plant-based foods. Founded with a mission to bring back cultivation for human consumption, Equinom is unlocking new opportunities using the most advanced technologies to bring back the quality and genomic diversity in food crops that have been lost for a century. Now, I would like to introduce our speakers for today's event. Rick Mignella is a senior executive and business leader with more than 25 years of experience in the food and ingredient industries. His customer-centric approach merges food and ingredient expertise with innovation and high-impact business skills to help global companies reach their objectives and expand revenue. Mignella has a deep understanding of the market from ideation to shelf, which has enabled him to identify synergies and establish collaborative partnerships throughout the supply chain. Sigal Mirovic serves as the head of protein development at Equinom and is responsible for translating the food industry complex product specifications into quantitative and qualitative product definitions for the end-to-end seed product development. She has more than 15 years of R&D experience in protein expression, purification and characterization, and in biopolymer product development in industry and academia. She has directed product development for consumer industry in a startup environment for 7 years. She is an inventor on 5 patents on protein engineering and biopolymer production. And now, without further ado, I would like to hand the presentation over to our first speaker today. Rick Mignella, you may begin when you're ready.
Wonderful. Thank you for that great introduction, Ryan. We really appreciate it, and thank you to X Talks as well. I would also like to thank the audience for participating and hope everyone's ready to learn about Equinom's AI-based breeding technology and how it can be used for innovating the next generation of plant-based foods. So moving on, we thought we'd start with a brief introduction about Equinom. Essentially, we're established in 2012. We have a global presence with operations in 20 different countries. We have collaborative partnerships with various organizations around the globe, including Roquette, PepsiCo Sabra, Dipasa, and the Good Mills Group in Europe. We are primarily breeding for sesame, yellow pea, and soybeans. These are our most advanced breeding programs. Sesame, we have commercial varieties in the marketplace, and we expect to have yellow pea varieties in the marketplace later this year, followed by high protein soybean varieties. In addition to these 3 crops, we are also working in a variety of special grains that are conducive to innovative plant-based food products, such as chickpea, mung bean, faba bean, cowpea, and other legumes that are used as building blocks in finished food products. Our vision is basically to create a wide variety of diversity to enable the continual expansion of our plant-based future, providing enhanced human nutrition for various food products, different food channels such as dairy, meat alternatives, seafood, sports nutrition, etc. We believe that a plant-based future is not only great for human nutrition, but it's also going to be incredibly important when it becomes long-term, when we talk about long-term sustainability for the best environmental practices. So reimagining great food. What we do, we're basically improving the source materials for the creation of functional ingredients to be used in a variety of finished food applications, creating value for all essential stakeholders in the supply chain, all using non-GMO, non-gene edited practices. We do this by optimizing seed characteristics, using a marriage of the latest breeding technology, AI tools, and traditional conventional breeding practices that have been used for a very long period of time. How we succeed, we're building strategic partnerships with global CPG manufacturers, ingredient companies, and others, both in emerging spaces as well as the established multinationals. If we take a quick look at the progression of plant-based alternatives, we all know that tofu was one of the founding products. Moving on, alternative plant-based milks and veggie or vegan vegetarian products started to emerge, to today's landscape, which includes a wide variety of meat and dairy alternatives, with the future being plant-based alternatives that are on par with their animal source counterparts, essentially creating plant-based foods that have the same pleasurable eating experiences as their animal-based counterparts. And there's been phenomenal improvement in these efforts over the last few years. So some of the challenges that exist today is the current landscape is not sustainable. It relies on very few core crops in order to produce the ingredients that are used in today's plant-based foods. It's also very expensive. The amount of processing that needs to take place in between the grain, the functional ingredient, and the finished food product is quite extensive. We prefer to let nature do most of the heavy lifting during the growth cycle to reduce the amount of processing within the supply chain, consequently saving costs, saving resources, reducing the environmental footprint overall. To date, there's been limited non-GMO advanced breeding programs going on. Traditionally, most companies are breeding for yield and more yield because that was the trait that was most valued by the marketplace, whereas Equinom is breeding for food nutrition. Yield is important, but some of the traits that have been lost over the centuries due to yield are being brought back by Equinom to the forefront, and we're creating source materials that have the best nutrition and the highest yielding varieties. Currently, the existing landscape and the ingredients used therein will not give you a clean label. And as everyone knows, most consumers are looking for simplified ingredient decks, clean labels, and traceability back to the seed. They'd like to know where their food is coming from. As mentioned earlier, the current landscape relies on very few source materials for the wide variety of finished food products that are out there. And they also lack appeal. They've been improving, but there's still loads of room for improvement, especially in channels such as seafood and cheese. Equinom's solution is all starting with the seed and the genetic makeup of the seeds. So we'll speak about protein and starch content and composition as well as oil. And our goal is to optimize the source, improve accessibility to these products, and of course, increase diversity. Put it this way, it's unlikely that you're going to go to the grocery store and buy chicken every night of the week. But in fact, the base ingredients of most plant-based food products are exactly that. They're limited to one or two core ingredients that make up the basis of the recipe. So when we talk about a robust ingredient packed into a tiny seed, some examples of the desired traits that our customers may be after, again, could be starch composition, protein composition, high yielding varieties, enhanced organoleptic properties, great taste, neutral color, could be a functionality issue in a certain application such as solubility. And as we all know, the desire to have an abundance of protein is on the tops of everyone's minds today. We combine this with the values that our customers desire, which at a farming level could be an efficient production, of course, the neutral or appealing taste that the end consumers desire, clean labels, high nutritional value, upgraded functionality, a reduced environmental footprint, and enhanced supply chain security. And I think everyone can agree that due to COVID, enhanced supply chain security has come under scrutiny even much more so because of the interruptions in the global supply chain that everyone witnessed. So if there is an opportunity to source domestically, companies and consumers would prefer to do that. So creating the ideal seed. Equinom is going to bring an AI-based product design platform. We're going to screen our extensive seed bank to determine the varieties that have the traits that folks are looking for. We're going to marry that with precision breeding practices as well as conventional breeding practices, all with the end result being the ideal seed that is designed to meet our customers' very defined specifications. And throughout this process, we understand that there's a need to deliver value to all the essential stakeholders in the supply chain. So beginning with the seed company, we need to commercialize new varieties that satisfy the emerging trends. Moving on to the farming community, I mentioned the importance of yield. There's also importance to diversify their crop portfolio. There's also a movement for regenerative farming and improving soil, and also gains in profitability, which all throughout the supply chain, as everyone knows, profitability is key. Moving on from the farming community to the grain handlers, there's some synergies here as well, meaning being able to source from a domestic location, simple traceability, the enhanced supply chain security that we've discussed, price stability, and also quality and consistency year over year. As the ingredient is commercialized and then presented to ingredient companies and food manufacturers, essentially the consumer-facing brand owners, the values here are going to be all about standardizing quality, delivering an exceptional consumer eating experience, delivering the ability to accelerate new product innovation, all while simplifying production and creating cleaner labels. And then on to the consumers, we're talking about delivering superior nutrition, superior eating experience, affordable products, and a transparent supply chain all the way back to the seed. So how do we do this? Some competitor solutions and traditional companies are in conventional breeding practices. This process could take up to 7 to 12 years. But Equinom's technology and the AI platform allows us to make better choices more often throughout the breeding process, essentially accelerating the solutions to as little as 1 year to up to 4 years, depending on the complexity of the traits desired by our partners. A great example of how a company like Equinom can engage and collaborate with a consumer-facing brand is our relationship with PepsiCo Sabra. So Equinom had an advanced breeding program for sesame established. Sabra then asked Equinom to breed sesame with the traits that they desired, which would be a great flavor, great texture, superior yield, and a domestic source. No small feat by any means, but through Equinom's technology, we then defined the ideal qualities in a crop for local sourcing. Equinom created these varieties. Sabra tested each one and selected the best. They now are using varieties to produce their tahini, which is being used in their hummus product in the US and is also being used for new product innovations throughout their entire product portfolio, which has enabled them to secure their supply chain, mitigate risk, and expand their share now and into the future, essentially reducing the reliance on an international supply chain, which is highly erratic in many areas, such as quality and consistency, but also price stability. So these different points of value that a collaboration with Equinom is enabled to be delivered throughout multiple stakeholders in the supply chain. Now, I'm going to turn the remaining part of the presentation over to Sigal. She's going to talk more specifically about how Equinom actually does what we're implying through our AI-driven breeding technology. Sigal?
Thank you, Rick. Hi, everyone. I'm Sigal Mijovic, the head of protein development at Equinom, and I'm very excited to be here today and to discuss how we bring this vision Rick spoke about to life, and how we help manufacturers design and produce the products they envision together with our AI system. Equinom developed this AI tool to provide a faster and more accurate way to breed in multiple complex traits to match ingredients to clients' requests. Sorry for the technical issues. The AI enables us to determine the influence of multiple biochemical and physical traits of a seed ingredient on the final product functionality, such as taste, texture, and even the nutritional value. The AI has machine learning capabilities that can screen Equinom's massive seed bank in order to find matches between source seed traits and the functionality we need in the end product. And here is how it works for manufacturers' product process development. Let's say a client comes and he is looking for an ingredient that will produce a juicier burger. Then the AI translates this requirements into Equinom's product definition, which includes biochemical and physical seed characteristics. Then the algorithm uses this definition to search Equinom's seed bank in order to find matches. And if matches exists, and often, of course, there is more than one match, we do an internal validation to confirm that indeed this variety has these qualities and produces the functionality the client requests. Then we send samples to the client for their validation. And after the client confirms that the variety indeed matches their expectations, we move on to large-scale ingredient cultivation. Of course, the AI is just one tool in our overall breeding strategy. And now I would like to discuss how we use it in protein ingredient breeding. So as was mentioned, of course, in the last slide, it all starts with our clients. So either the food companies or the ingredient companies, the client approaches us with their requirements, and the AI and our internal food application lab translate client requirements into an ingredient definition. Then comes our biochemistry lab with its high throughput capabilities that evaluates thousands of varieties for different traits such as protein content, protein composition, starch composition, and many more traits that are important for the product, and selects the varieties that match the requirements. In the rare event that a perfect match is not found, the bioinformatics team enters into the picture and defines the natural crossbreeding steps to produce the exact variety the client requires. Finally, we use these crossbreeding steps to grow the ingredient. And now I would like to make it more tangible by looking at two case studies on how we did this breeding for specific characteristics. The first case study comes from our tofu breeding program, in which we breed soybeans for high quality tofu. And when it comes to tofu, we try to find the fine balance between cost effectiveness and product quality. When it comes to cost effectiveness, we measure the tofu yield. And when it comes to the tofu qualities, we're referring to its sensorial attributes such as taste, texture, the water retention of the product, protein recovery, and the nutritional value. One of the main characteristics that influences tofu quality is its texture. And in order to measure the texture of the tofu, we use the penetration method, in which we measure the time it took for a 20-gram metal ball to penetrate the tofu surface. And then we classified our different varieties based on their penetration time into 4 different hardness clusters of low, medium, hard, and extra hard. In this video, we will see 4 tofu varieties taken from 4 different hardness clusters that have the exact same protein content. The only difference between them is their protein composition. Let's have a look. Think about this. The only difference between these varieties is their protein composition. There were no differences in processing, additives, or other factors. Imagine the potential of using such a system in your products. So after we did tests on over 100 different tofu varieties, evaluating numerous variables, the AI gave us a very clear picture of the protein components that had the biggest influence on product texture. So, for example, if a customer comes and he would like to breed for a hard texture tofu, here in hardness cluster 4, then we need a certain ratio between different protein components in order to breed for such a line. Of course, texture is not the only trait that influences tofu quality. Therefore, we measured other qualities such as water holding capacity, protein recovery, taste, and defined a code for high quality tofu. What we have talked about so far is tofu quality, and now we are applying the knowledge gained from the tofu case study on the relationship between protein composition and functional properties such as emulsification, foaming, water holding, and gelation in order to design our next-gen soybean variety and to upgrade meat alternatives such as making juicier burgers. In fact, we are creating the first AI bread legume designed specifically for meat alternatives. And now we'd like to move forward to our second case study that comes from our pea breeding program, in which we are breeding for neutral tasting varieties. As you probably know, legumes can have undesirable off flavors, often described as beany, grassy, bitter. Equinom is reducing these off flavors to breed for neutral tasting varieties, and to do this, we implemented the high throughput electronic nose in our breeding system in order to classify thousands of seeds into clusters by their aromatic profiles. And we use these clusters to correlate their molecular compositions with the tasting panel results and to define the genomic code for a neutral tasting product. And here I would like to pause and to stress again that this whole process is non-GMO with no gene editing, a completely natural breeding method, and that the whole genomic codes of Equinom products are patented. And when it comes to traceability, the genetic codes of all of our seeds can be easily traced through your supply chain. We know that what consumers care about most is taste. Of course, this is the holy grail. So in my last slide, I want to show you how we are using AI in breeding to impact taste. The AI helped us differentiate between good and bad tasting varieties. The good tasting are shown here in green, while the bad tasting in red. We use the good tasting varieties to validate this neutral taste in a real food application, such as plant-based panna cotta. And from an internal tasting panel evaluation, it was very clear that the AI model outperformed our expectations, with tasters reporting high acceptance of the end product. The bottom line, we succeeded in producing a pea-based panna cotta without off flavors, which was superior in taste to the same dessert made with commercial peas. This showed the AI model's true potential for enhancing product taste. Now I'll hand it over to you, Rick, for the final slides.
That was great, Sigal. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to take the opportunity to show through Equinom's end-to-end approach using culinary vernacular and collaborative relationships to basically start with harnessing what nature provides, which is captured in Equinom's extensive seed bank, and defining a product definition with our partners to deliver a solution all the way to the consumer level. This process in and of itself, the end-to-end approach, is relatively new as a solution set to the marketplace. But as you can imagine, the incredible amount of opportunity to innovate using a platform such as Equinom's is quite exciting and can be applied to a variety of different crops and a variety of finished food applications, providing value all throughout the supply chain. Concluding, talking about great food, Equinom is taking the lead in plant-based nutrition, working within the crops that are the building blocks for tomorrow's innovative products. Our solutions are driven by proprietary computational breeding technology, and as Sigal mentioned, IP-protected, patented product portfolio with traceability all the way back to the seed for enhanced supply chain security. We value long-term partnerships with prominent companies, market leaders, and innovators that essentially would like to take the journey with us. Due to biology, these projects are multi-year in nature. However, through Equinom's technology, we've been able to shorten that timeline quite a bit to react to the ever-changing conditions of the marketplace. So at the moment, we are working on the industry-wide solutions that everyone is looking for, i.e. high protein, neutral color, neutral flavor, but we're also taking it a step further and drilling down into protein composition, as well as other valuable traits that our partners may be looking for. And sometimes protein is not their priority. Sometimes it may be oil content in composition. It really depends on the finished food application, the processing that is needed to create that finished food application, and the source materials that are used to create the functional ingredients that are used to create the finished food application. So as you can imagine, there's many stakeholders in the entire supply chain, from the farmers to the grain handlers, the ingredient companies that are processing source materials, into the complex ingredient systems that are used in today's finished food products. Equinom adds value to all those essential stakeholders in the supply chain and are excited to continue collaboration with both market leaders and emerging innovators. So lastly, we challenge the industry and our partnerships to imagine what's the art of the possible if, for instance, you were provided an opportunity to have visibility into the genetics of a source material, a seed, in a natural, non-GMO fashion, and can cherry pick the traits that would enhance your finished food applications for improved eating experience or enhanced nutrition or reduced processing. This is a quite exciting development in today's landscape, and we envision tomorrow's landscape to be even more exciting, with a variety of source materials being used to create the most complete proteins for a wide variety of functionalities to ensure that the continued growth of the plant-based market is going to have enough source materials with a wide diversity that deliver the proper nutrition and the attributes that consumers and consumer product good companies are looking for. So with that, the sky is the limit, truly. And part of our challenge is defining how to get started, because we can certainly go down many different paths, deploying our technologies in many different crops for many different food applications. So our collaborations with our partners are multi-year, high transparent, and highly engaged. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan to start the Q&A, and I thank you again for attending.
Well, thank you very much for that insightful presentation. I would like to invite the audience to continue sending their questions or comments right now using the questions window for this Q&A portion of the webinar. I have already received some questions though, so we'll get ourselves started with those. And our very first question is directed towards yourself, Rick, and it would just like to know what type of crops do you breed?
Okay, thank you. So part of the advantage that Equinom brings to the marketplace is that we've had advanced breeding programs underway in yellow pea, soy, and sesame. And why this is an advantage is simply because it takes many years to arrive at a desired solution where you're stacking multiple traits in an improved seed. In addition to those three crops, we are working on, as I mentioned, chickpea, mung bean, faba bean, and cowpea, which are emerging as the building blocks of tomorrow's plant-based food products. When we think about an improved variety such as Equinom Smarter Sesame and the varieties that were created for PepsiCo Sabra, we can then build off of that breeding program and create functional ingredients such as sesame protein, which is an extension of the varieties that were created for PepsiCo Sabra's hummus products. However, the emergence of sesame protein as an alternative to soy and pea and wheat in the marketplace is very exciting, because the leading innovators in plant-based foods, they're looking for a wide variety of ingredients in which to formulate their food products. And overcoming the drawbacks of each crop that is available today as well as tomorrow is critical. So we believe that having a broad crop portfolio to which to create functional ingredients from is going to be integral to the success of the innovative products of tomorrow.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. Our next question would be directed towards Sigal. The question would like to know, what if the variety doesn't exist yet? How is the creation process? Sigal, you mentioned when the variety is already available in your seed bank.
Yes, it's a very good question. And I talked about it briefly in the presentation that in the event where a perfect match is not found, then we use our bioinformatics team and also the phenotypic or precise phenotypic processes that we have in our biochemistry lab in order to define the natural crossbreeding steps to produce the exact variety the client requires. And I believe this is the process that we are in touch with our clients very closely in order to understand their needs and to define the characteristics that they aim to use in their products. And then we're screening the entire the entire seed bank according to their specification in order to find matches and use our genomic data in order to create a genomic code for the desired product.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next question we have is also for yourself, and it would like to know, on what type of raw ingredients do you measure the functional properties?
Okay, thank you. We are working with protein concentrates. And of course, when it comes to soy, we are working with soy flour. I want also to mention that we have already established a pea concentrate with 65%, which is the highest commercial pea concentrate available in the market currently. And with the soy, we are very close to achieving the same level of protein content, the 65% in soy flour.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. The next question we have is towards Rick, and it would like to know, how does your AI help to shorten the whole breeding process in order to release a tailor-made plant solution?
Yes, thanks, Ryan. That's another great question. I'd say our technology platform, which is the state-of-the-art AI tools and our massive seed bank, allows us to screen the seed bank to find matches that meet the definitions created together with our clients. So it allows us to essentially make better choices in the breeding program far more frequently than if one was using conventional breeding and making decisions after each growing season, which is why our platform shortens the entire breeding program, because in combination of running the tests in the fields, we're also running the tests in silico to determine the viability of specific varieties to deliver a particular specification to our client. But I can't stress enough the value of our extensive seed bank, which Sigal can speak to a bit more. But having the ability to translate culinary vernacular into biochemistry and then into the agronomic properties, and then once again into defining the genomic code to deliver the traits that one is looking for, is quite complex. And the amount of data points that our tools screen very quickly is essentially new to the world technology. But Sigal, if you have anything to add on how our platform shortens the overall breeding process, please do.
Yes, I can say just maybe one sentence because I agree with everything you said, that the AI tool together with our precision phenotyping processes enables us very early selections according to our clients' value add traits, which of course, as I mentioned before, we try to develop it together, like our processes and the way that we are phenotyping and testing our different varieties.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much. Sigal, we have a question for you, and it would like to know, is everything that you work on non-GMO? Can you talk more about how the breeding process avoids genetic modification?
Yes, of course. Everything we are breeding is non-GMO. We use a basic PCR test that can detect GMO. How do we avoid genetic modifications? So we are using only classical breeding means by doing what I would like to call as non-blind classical breeding. So every seed or plant that we are working on, we know its genetic codes and we know its biochemical and also seed characteristics and field characteristics. So we are doing a non-blind breeding, but we are not manipulating the DNA in any manner. So non-gene editing, non-GMO completely, and we are verifying this non-GMO, of course, by using PCR.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next question would be towards Rick, and it states that they have an interest to improve mung bean seed protein content. Do you use gene editing?
Okay, so I think Sigal just covered off this question, but just to reiterate, no, we do not use any gene editing nor GMO practices. I can hopefully answer this question for everyone's sake, is that all of the traits that Equinom are working with exist in nature at one point and have been available, growing in the wild or in some agricultural manner. It may have been hundreds of years ago, and a lot of these valuable traits that are essential for human nutrition have been lost over the centuries due to the desire for higher yield varieties. So Equinom has the ability to essentially use a time tunnel, go back and scour the extensive seed bank for varieties that were once growing, that have the traits that are required, and we bring them forward. And as Sigal mentioned, we then enter into a conventional breeding program that's accelerated with our technology platform. So if you can imagine, the tomatoes of today do not really look or taste as similar to some of the heirloom varieties that are available or that have been growing many, many years ago, because the breeding practices were designed to increase yield and consistency and disease resistance, etc. And it's not that those traits aren't important, they certainly are. However, for the plant-based foods community, it's really about optimizing those sources and bringing forth what nature has already provided, and using the state-of-the-art technology to do that. And that's why we say we'd like to leave the processing in the field and up to nature. We're simply just identifying those traits that have always existed and bringing them forward. Now, that in of itself is an incredibly onerous process, to which the seed bank and the AI tools and computational breeding technology allows us to accelerate.
That's great. Thank you very much. Our next question is towards Sigal, and it would like to know, how do you determine good tasting peas? Was a trained sensory panel involved, or did you only use the volatile profile to determine good characteristics?
Okay, thank you for this question. So we do it on several levels. The first one, we have a trained tasting panel, our own internal trained tasting panel. The second one is we are collaborating with our clients, and they define for us what is a good taste, what is a bad taste, what they are willing or want to change, what would they like to reduce, what kind of off flavors, what would they like to increase. And of course, we use the AI and our electronic nose in order to determine what are the volatile compounds that indeed create this undesirable off flavor. So I think we use it, we determine the bad taste or the off notes by using all these three levels. Internal trained tasting panel, our clients, and our AI and Enos.
Excellent, thank you very much. Our next question is also for yourself, and it states that at Zealandia, we are mainly interested in egg replacement. In the description, I couldn't find if it is mainly focused on plant proteins for egg protein replacement or meat protein replacement.
Okay, so of course our main focus in Equinom is on meat and dairy alternatives, but I have to say that ag replacers is something that we're definitely looking into, and we are more than willing to partner with other parties in order to share the knowledge we gained so far. So we are welcome the attendee, and of course we will be in touch with him offline.
Thank you very much. Rick, our next question is for yourself. It would like to know, how do we purchase the ingredients designed by Equinom?
Sure. No, that's also a very good question, because it's essential to have clear visibility to how the solution is going to be delivered to the food manufacturers creating the consumer-facing brands. So we'll tackle this a variety of ways. Equinom is very flexible. In the case of the PepsiCo Sabra case study, we provided the agronomic support to the farmers. We created the new and improved sesame genetics, and in that instance, PepsiCo Sabra had an existing supply chain that they then managed in order to complete the commercialization and delivery of the quote unquote the ingredient, which in that case was a sesame seed. In other instances, Equinom is for the pea varieties, for an example, we are growing peas this year that we expect to extract the protein from to have the high protein pea concentrate that Sigal mentioned, which is very exciting news. It's new to the market. And for that, we would then either commercialize the ingredient ourselves, Equinom, and then the partner would simply purchase the ingredient from us. Or if there's partners within the supply chain that have been established by our existing customers, then we would collaborate with them. So I can't stress this enough, but it's essential to have partners within the supply chain from start to finish. I mean, because it's integral that the farming community is trained properly on how to grow the varieties that have been defined by the CPG companies and Equinom year over year to deliver that spec to an ingredient processor, to which then the food manufacturer or consumer-facing brand can then purchase and use in their formulations. So I would say it's a bit flexible, but it's defined by the needs of our partners, and we established that relatively quickly in the development of the overall relationship.
All right, thank you very much. We have another question for you. I would simply just like to know how they can partner with Equinom.
Sure, that's an easy one. Certainly reach out to us and we can have a few preliminary discussions about what your needs are. Then we can enter into some sort of letter of intent or understanding. We can begin working together and then build out definitive agreements as needed. I would think that we work with clients in a varieties of ways, from very tailored, specific, and complex breeding programs that are multi-year projects, to some more simplified R&D projects to simply gather more learnings to determine what exactly we should be breeding for. Sigal's team is doing a phenomenal job of mapping the current landscape of all proteins, plant-based as well as animal. And the scale that she's creating is going to provide a roadmap to even accelerate the solutions that much faster. So I would say the best way to partner with Equinom is to start a discussion, determining what your desires are, and then identifying where your strategies intersect with some of the things that we have working on today, and some of the things that we may be working on in the future.
All right, thank you very much. Another question we have for you then, if you develop a variety that does not quite meet the partner's desired characteristics, yet the variety yields well so that farmers will want to plant it for the commodity market, will you make these varieties available to others in the industry?
Well, I think we would take that on a case-by-case basis. So again, the collaborations that we have with our partners are usually not transactional. So there would be open discussions about what to do with grains that are determined to be off spec, if you will, early in the process, to ensure that no one's left with material that's that they don't have an ability to use. So those guidelines would be put into place relatively early in the process. And I would stress that when I say relatively transparent and highly engaged, we mean that. The journey that we take with our partners is one that you need to have high engagement and collaboration and identify the milestones that are needed to achieve to continue to provide evidence that we're following the right path towards a commercialization and a new ingredient. And that's something that's not accomplished through limited engagement.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question is really towards either of you, whoever would like to answer. The question asks, are agronomic qualities like disease resistance or yield potential considered when selecting varieties, or is it primarily based on the quality parameters?
I can, yeah.
Yes, Sigal, if you want to start, I can chime in, but go ahead.
Yes, I can start. So when we're developing a product definition, we're taking the qualities, of course, into account, but of course the basics would be the qualities or phenotype in the field. So of course we are aiming for high yield, disease resistance, and all the characteristics that are needed for high yield in the field. And then all of these traits are combined with the biochemical characteristics such as protein composition, and all of it make the genomic code of our products. Rick, do you want to add on it?
Sure, and that was a great answer, Sigal. I would say to the folks asking the question is that whatever the solution may be, it has to be repeatable year over year, and not something that we are successful with on a one-time basis or an inconsistent basis. So we always have to take in consideration disease resistance and high yield. As Sigal mentioned, these are kind of the initial bar to entry, and then we can then stack additional traits on top of those. But we know that a long-term sustainable program that has the proper nutrition that one is looking for, but does not have the yield characteristics or disease resistant characteristics, won't be sustainable. So I hope that helps. We're looking for solutions that are repeatable year over year, that are meeting the specifications in a particular region that our consumers are looking for.
That's great, thank you. We've got another question for the both of you. It would like to know, how do you differentiate yourselves from the others in the marketplace?
Sure. Sigal, do you want me to start off on this one?
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So we differentiate ourselves by having, what we believe to be a very broad portfolio of crops to work with, which we have an advantage to having multi-year breeding programs already underway. So simply the amount of time that we have working on these different crops is an advantage, because by the nature of biology, these things just take time. I would say what's exciting is that there's plenty of room for everyone in this market. There's a lot of folks that are just coming into the market. There's others that have been established. There's certainly been a variety of companies in the marketplace that have been bringing different solutions to the marketplace, and we feel that, you know, what we're bringing is unique and different, and we only can grow further by expanding our crop portfolio and coming up with, you know, very complex ingredient solutions that are going to be applicable to a variety of functionalities. I'd say, you know, when we talk about the products that we have in our pipeline, you know, we have commercially available products that were generated from our breeding program. I think that's something that is differentiates us. I'd say also the ability to expand on those success stories provides another point of acceleration. As I mentioned, the commercialized sesame varieties now evolving into a functional ingredient, which is sesame protein that has not been available up to the market today. That sesame protein would not be an opportunity unless Equinom was not working on sesame seeds for, you know, the better part of 6 years. So I would think, to summarize, the breadth of a crop portfolio that we have, the commercialized products that are in our current portfolio available to the market, and also that, you know, the market is going to continue to grow. There's going to be synergies and partnerships to develop ingredient systems, that there'll be opportunities to collaborate with very innovative companies that, you know, are they competing with Equinom or not competing, or indirectly competing with Equinom? It really depends on which the lens you view this through. But we believe that the technology and the solutions that we're bringing are quite unique. They are certainly not the only solutions that are available in the marketplace, but they certainly have a place in the market, and we expect it to grow quite rapidly.
All right, well, excellent. Thank you very much for that answer and for all of the answers today. However, we have reached the end of our question and answer portion of the webinar. Now, if we couldn't attend to your questions, the team at Equinom may follow up with you, or if you have further questions, you can direct them to the email addresses that are up on the screen. I want to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. You will be receiving a follow-up email from XTalks with access to the recorded archive for this event. A survey window will be popping up on your screen, and your participation is appreciated, as it will help us to improve our webinars. Now, I've sent you a link in the chat box, and with this link, you'll be able to view the recording of this event on this page, and you can also share this link with your colleagues when they register for the recording here as well. So I encourage you to do that. Now, please join me once more in thanking our speakers, Rick Mignella and Sigal Mirovic. We hope that you all found the webinar informative. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks for coming.